Good morning. Today I want to talk a little bit about the devil, maybe oddly enough. So often I think we give the devil too much credit. Maybe sometimes we give the devil not enough credit. But one of the things that we know is that the devil is a fallen angel. And like all angels, the devil only has any power that is given or allowed him by God. So sometimes you hear people say things like, well, COVID-19 is something that the devil caused. And the devil causes hurricanes or tornadoes or other kinds of illness. But in fact, the devil does not have that kind of power. That is when we make the mistake of almost assuming that the devil and God are equals and that there are this good and evil, or these equal opposing forces. That's not at all, of course, the case in any form of Christian theology. The devil cannot exist, cannot be in more than one place at a time. My suspicion is I've never been in any place where the devil has been. Maybe some other fallen angel, some other demons or whatever, but not the devil, because I just don't think I'm that important or important enough to merit the devil's attention. And so we need to be careful not to ascribe things like COVID-19 or whatever to the devil. But what the devil can do and what the devil's minions can do is tempt us into doing things that are devilish, that are monstrous. And when we succumb to those temptations, then we can take a bad situation and make it worse. And we're seeing that happening in lots of different ways. So if you want to look at the COVID-19 situation, people who are profiting from it, other people who are doing things that make it more dangerous for other people to perhaps contract the disease or whatever. The devil can tempt us to not take the precautions that we need to take, not only to endanger us, but to endanger other people. One of the amazing things about wearing a mask is it doesn't so much protect the wearer as it protects other people. And so if we don't wear a mask, we may be giving in to the temptations of the devil. But I say all of those things to get around to this bottle of wine that I have sitting here next to me. Way back on April 2nd, my birthday, our deacons and elders provided for me and my family a birthday feast. Janet Black brought it over. They did takeout, brought over this wonderful family of feast of salmon to celebrate my birthday. And as a part of that, they brought wine. And Janet knew that I liked Malbec. And so she just bought a bottle of Malbec that she found in the store. It's Casillo, I guess. I'm not very good at Spanish. Casillo, maybe, del Diablo. And I looked up what Casillo means, and it is a locker or a box or pigeonholes. And so I assume what this is kind of trying to say is that this wine comes from sort of the wine cellar of the devil. But it is really good wine. And I used it in the online communion that we had a few days later, celebrating Easter time. And I think it was maybe the Maundy Thursday communion that we had. I used the wine for the communion wine that I had that evening. And I told Janet that it meant so much to me because I knew it was wine that had been paid for by other people. They had made a sacrifice so that I could have the wine. And that made it so much more special than just some wine or juice or whatever that I might have gotten out of our cabinet. And so Janet ever since has been providing me with this wine to use in communion, and then I can bring home what's left over and then use it for my personal use as well later. And you might wonder, well, why in the world would we be using Casillo del Diablo? Why would we be using wine from the devil's locker or the devil's wine cellar? And I kind of like it because I feel like this is exactly what Jesus did to Satan. Satan tempted those who would crucify Jesus to crucify Jesus. And Satan was sure that he had done in God. He had murdered God. The world was going to be his, and the blood of Christ was the evidence for him that he had won. And then Jesus, the one who turned water into wine, says that from now on, wine will be a symbol of my blood spilled out for others. And what you thought you were doing to provide death and to bring death to all the world, I will use to bring life. And so we literally get the wine, get the blood of Christ from the locker of the devil, where he thought he had it, where he thought he had won, and Christ instead is victorious. And that reminds us again, of course, that the devil is not on an equal par with God, but the devil is a far, far inferior. And so on this day, let me remind you of that wonderful verse in the Bible. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. If you are tempted this day to do something that would bring harm to another person, or tempted to not do something that might bring harm to another person, not to act. If you're tempted today to perpetuate a disagreement or a problem, if you have any kind of temptation this day that might be temptation coming from the devil, resist the devil and he will flee from you, for Christ has already purchased for us our freedom. We know these are all true. We know this is wonderful news because God is with us. Amen.